Have you ever wondered why some kids have amazing parents, incredible support, and every opportunity, yet still never reach their full potential? Think about it. Some children grow up with parents who love them deeply. They have rise to practice, tutors, encouragement, opportunities. Parents who would do absolutely anything for them. And yet, some of those kids never become the people they were capable of becoming. Why? Is it talent? Is it luck? Or could it be that sometimes the very things that we do out of love accidentally limit the people our children become? Welcome to the Hype Jack, where we challenge the way you think so you can change the way you live. I'm Kevin Jack, and every week we unpack the mindsets, habits, and decisions that help people plug in to their potential. Today's episode isn't about criticizing parents. It's about challenging all of us, and that includes myself, because I've learned some things coaching athletes, working with students, and actually raising my own kids that really most parents don't hold their children back because they don't care. They do it because they care so much. And today I want to share 3 Hype Jack principles that I believe can help us all to raise capable adults instead of simply comfortable kids. Now, we all want the best for our children. We want to protect them, help them, encourage them, give them opportunities we never had. None of those things are actually wrong. But here's the question. At what point does helping become hindering? At what point does protecting become preventing? Because our goal isn't to raise children who always need us. Our goal is to raise adults who can thrive without us. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine there's a man who's watching as a caterpillar crawls in and creates the cocoon. He's watched this caterpillar since he can remember when. And he's finally to the point where he knows that the caterpillar is going to make a transition. And so that caterpillar gets into the cycle of getting into its cocoon. And every single day, this guy watches. He watches, waiting for the day that busting out the cocoon is a beautiful butterfly. He waits, and one day he sees there's a little crackle in the cocoon and it's starting to move a little bit. And he can see a slight little light where he knows that there's a butterfly, but it seems it can't get out the cocoon. And so he's thinking to himself, what should I do? It's a big struggle going on here. And remember, he's been watching this butterfly since the butterfly was a caterpillar, and he's waiting for it to emerge. And so thinking to himself, he says, you know what? I got the right answer. I'm going to free it out of its cocoon. And he goes and frees it. But the butterfly, it actually never flies. It just falls out of the cocoon and kind of walks around. You see, science actually tells us that when that butterfly is struggling to get out of the cocoon, there's actually fluid that's pushed into the wings, right? And that fluid that gets pushed into the wings, that allows the wings to be capable and strong enough to actually fly. And so that struggle enables flight. And so as we jump into it today, I want you to keep this in mind. The first principle that I want to start with is that we should limit options, but not possibilities. And while I was thinking about this principle, I started laughing to myself because I want you to think about it. And you tell me if if you've had this happen before. Get in the comment section, let me know. Have you ever been deciding to watch Netflix or Hulu or Prime or insert whatever your favorite streaming service is? And you go through the options and you just find yourself continuously going through the options. You think, well, maybe I want to watch some horror. Maybe I want a drama. Maybe I want a romantic comedy. Maybe I want just some slapstick comedy. What, it doesn't matter. But you find yourself scrolling through the options and you never find a decision. You never make the choice, right? And so you never get any type of outcome. I want you to keep that in mind when we talk about the options for our kiddos, right? Think about you scrolling on Netflix and you're doom scrolling. You're trying to find the perfect the perfect option for you that's going to give you the perfect payoff. And hours later, you find yourself and you have not made a selection. And so we have to think about it like this. Children need the boundaries. They don't need limitations. Those are two different things, right? I always like to talk about rivers because, to me, rivers tell us a lot about life. And so a river is powerful because it has those banks. The banks don't restrict the river. It just guides it. It gives it direction. See, without the boundaries, it would spread everywhere. It loses its strength. So healthy boundaries don't reduce the potential. They actually focus it. And so parents, myself included, we often believe more choices equal more freedom. But let's go back to the Netflix option. You have the option of unlimited movies. You should be able to find one that you watch. You should be able to, right? But you can't. Hours later, you are still scrolling. Still scrolling. Still trying to figure it out. See, sometimes more choices create more confusion. Instead of unlimited options, provide intentional options. And so instead of saying, we are going to do football, basketball, soccer, track, we're going to do every single sport. Let's find intentional outlets, intentional options, right? Some things might be limit screen time, limit distractions, limit excuses. But you don't have to tell the child who they can't become. Like, never limit their dreams, but you can focus them. And so instead of giving them 8 different things to choose from, select 3 and say, let's try these. And so you can say, you can choose which sport. Not, oh, don't do anything. You can be on the game. You can also say, you can choose when you want to do your homework. Not, you don't have to do it, right? Because those boundaries, that focus that you're providing will build responsibility. So I want you to ask yourself, am I limiting possibilities or simply providing direction? Am I giving them too many options? If you suffer from paralysis analysis, what do you think that does to your kiddo? So our next principle is one that affects a lot of us, and it's one I think we really need to hone into, and that's don't move the hurdle. Don't move the hurdle. One of my first years as a young coach, I had an exceptional athlete, and of course, um, he was just super gifted, and we put him in the hurdles, and it just seemed like from the day he started, it was the most difficult thing that he had ever been tasked with. But every day he came to practice and he worked and worked and worked. And so mom was concerned. Hey, he's running the hurdles. He's gonna fall. I don't want him to fall in the race. But in looking at him, he is the best. He's going to win most of the races that that he runs. But mom was just so cautious about him having to run the hurdles in a race. She was she didn't even care that he was the best at at getting over the hurdles and the fastest at finishing. She just was in fear of the fall. What if he falls? You see, when life gets difficult, we can't just say, "Hey, let's lower the standard. Let's not do it." Encourage them if they're okay at running the hurdles. Encourage them to do so. I also want you to think about this. What would what would happen if you had one child who constantly is running around that same track and they're always practicing hurdles, and then you have one child who they don't ever encounter a hurdle, but then one day the track is filled with hurdles? Who becomes the child that succeeds? Right? See, a lot of times, and I'm speaking from what I do, and maybe you can relate. A lot of times we will try to remove the hurdle. We'll allow them to run on the track called life. And then we are surprised when on the track of life there is an obstacle, there is a hurdle, and they can't get over it. Well, that comes back to us because, well, we never put them in a situation where they actually had to get over the obstacle. And this obstacle can come in many different ways. Sometimes it's a hard class. Sometimes it's a tough sport. Sometimes it's uh, an athlete who's benched. It could be a number of things, but we naturally want to remove the obstacle. We want to remove the hurdle. And so we'll say, instead of struggling through the class, let's move the class. Let's change the class. Instead of the athlete trying to win a position, hey, let's take him somewhere else. Let's take her somewhere else. We try to actually remove all of the discomfort. But sometimes, just like in the story with the man observing the butterfly and helping it out, get out of its cocoon. Sometimes the struggle is what's going to give that individual the ability to take flight. Sometimes it's the struggle. Many times we're like this because it's based on our own fears, our own insecurity. And so we have to start asking ourselves the question, right? Should we be removing the obstacle? Should we be solving the problem all the time? Because here's the truth: life isn't going to remove every hurdle. They're going to come against some type of obstacle. Sometimes it's a small hurdle, sometimes it's a big one. So if we remove every hurdle now, then who teaches our children how to jump? So instead of rescuing them, coach your kids. Ask questions instead of giving answers, and encourage instead of solving. See, growth lives on the other side of struggle. And so I want you to ask yourself, am I solving problems my child is having, am I solving the problems that they're actually capable of solving? This is something only you know. So, our last principle is thanks for checking out today's episode. Now, whether you're a parent, a student, an athlete, a creator, or an entrepreneur, your dream already has a destination. And the Hype Score provides a roadmap to that destination. Now, while everybody else is measuring performance, the Hype Score measures opportunity. So go see what all the hype's about. Go to kevinjack.com and get your Hype Score today. So our last principle is raise originals, not replicas. This is going to hurt a lot of feelings, but your child wasn't created to become you. They were created to become themselves. We can look in the forest. You walk through any forest. No two trees look exactly alike. Same rain, same sunlight, same soil, different growth. See, rarely does nature produce copies. It produces uniqueness. And so most of the time, when we have really great qualities as parents, we want our kids to adopt those great qualities. And so we find ourselves trying to participate in clone culture. And what that is that's, I was great at this, so I'm going to make sure they're great at this. I did this exceptionally, so I'm going to make sure that they are the exception here. All right. And we do that. And it comes from a good place. It's like, hey, this worked for me, is going to work for John Bobby. All right. Another one of the greatest mistakes we make as parents is we make these comparisons. Why can't you be like your brother? Well, you know, the neighbor's daughter, when I was your age, comparison doesn't create confidence. It creates insecurity. And this is when I had to check myself on. I found myself telling my oldest Jackson, hey, well, you know, I I did it like this. You know, this is how I did it. But again, he's having his own unique experience. And so I can't expect him to be my clone. I can't expect him to be a Kevin Jack replica. Because instead of instilling confidence in who he is, I'm taking that away. I'm creating an insecurity. All right. Empower them to be uniquely them. And so we have to ask, who do I want my child to become? All right. Who were they created to become? Imagine you have a book and you're writing a book, and somebody snatches that book out of your hands and they begin writing the story. On the cover, it says, it has three letters, YOU. And so they're writing the story of you. So they write this story and then they hand it to you and they say, hey, well, that's your story. How does that feel? How does it feel? Would you want someone to write your story, or would you want to be the author? See, our role isn't to author their story, it's to help them discover it. So celebrate their effort, celebrate their character, celebrate the curiosity, celebrate their unique gifts. Not just the achievements, though. Not just the achievements. When they struggle, celebrate that. When they experience failure, encourage, comfort, and continue to push through. I want you to ask yourself, am I raising the child I have or chasing the child I imagined? Right? Which one are you doing? So as you go through your week, I want you to think about these three principles: limiting options and not possibilities, don't move the hurdles, and raising originals and not replicas. You notice something? None of these principles make parenting easier. They make it more intentional because the goal isn't to make life easy for our children. The goal is to prepare children for life. See, one day, as much as you hate it and as much as I hate it, you won't be there to solve every single problem. There's going to come a time where you won't be there to answer every single question. And they're going to come up against a struggle where you can't fight every battle. All they'll have left is what you've built inside of them. I want you to imagine 20 years from now, when they're an adult and they come up against that hard time in life. Do you envision them winning that race in life and leaping over that hurdle? Or are you fearful of them even participating in the race? So as you move the rest of the way, I want you to not ask, how can I make my child's life easier? Ask, how can I make my child stronger? Because one day, that strength will matter more than comfort. Character will matter more than convenience. And that confidence will come from them overcoming, not from them avoiding, right? Not from avoiding the challenges life puts in front of them. I want you to think. And here's an even beautiful thought. Imagine if in 20 years they're running the race of life. What is more beautiful than if they leap over that hurdle and it catches their foot and they fall, but they're able to get back up and they finish the race? That's a beautiful thought, right? If today's conversation challenged the way that you think, share with another parent, because the greatest gift we can give our children isn't an easier life. It's becoming the kind of people who can handle a hard one. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep helping the next generation plug in to their potential. My name is Kevin Jack, and this is the Hype Jack.